Welcome folks, Jason Hoppy here to walk you through corner widgets in Adobe Illustrator. Now corner widgets are one of those things that are on virtually all the closed shapes that you draw, save for a circle because there are no corners. And corner widgets are those little things that pop up, those little targets that show up in the corners of a shape. But people always ask me what you can and can't do with corner widgets. So what I'm going to do is walk you through what corner widgets are, what you can do, and some of the tips and tricks that you know about corner widgets. So we're going to be bouncing back and forth between the selection tool and the direct selection tool for our corner widgets. So for those of you that don't know those shortcuts, the direct selection tool is the letter V, the selection tool is the letter V. The direct selection tool is the letter A. Don't want to get those confused. So I'm going to go with my selection tool, and I'm going to select a circle. Because a circle has no corners, you are not going to have any of those corner widgets. But if I select anything that does have corners, you'll notice that those little corner widgets, I call those little targets, show up on an object. Now, when I select a shape that has corner widgets with my selection tool, you can click on the corner widgets and you'll notice that the cursor will give you this little unhappy face. Well, actually that's not an unhappy little face, that's the curve, because that shows you what kind of corner you're going to get when you pull your corner widget in toward the center of your shape. If I click on that corner widget and pull it out from the center of the shape, you're going to get less of a corner. Pull it in, you're going to get more of a corner. And you'll notice all of these work in conjunction with each other, so I'm not doing just one corner at a time. Now, if I did want to do one corner at a time, I could select my shape and then click on any one of those corners, and you'll notice that it gets a little bit heavier, and I call this a little chubby donut. And you'll notice that the center point of the corner widget target goes away, and you get your little chubby donut. Now that little chubby donut means that you have isolated that corner to work separately from all the other corners. So once I activate that, you'll notice that I can pull that corner in or out, and I can also give it no corner. And the second I let go, that little donut disappears. So if I'd like to select that, I click on it once, don't have to hold down any modifier keys, and I can move that in or out independently of the other corners. And once I let go, it returns back to the normal corner widget. Now here I've got some odd corners here because some are more widgeted than the others. And I can go and I can pull those in or out, and all of those are going to go at the same rate. So you'll notice as I pull it in and out, you'll notice that I lose the corner up here in the upper right-hand corner because it's going and doing it at the rate that I had gone ahead and set for that corner. So if I didn't have much of a corner, you'll notice that that corner simply disappears when I pull it all the way out, and the other ones will simply go and lessen as well. I can pull them all the way out to their maximum right there, and there I don't have any corner widgets right there. And then once I pull it all the way out, it basically resets all the corners. So if I pull it all the way out and then pull them all the way back in, you'll notice that all the corners have been reset, so they all work the same. Now, a trick is I can go through here and I can simply select this shape here, and I've got three different corners that I can have. I can have rounded corners, I can have flat corners, or inverse rounded corners. And I can do that by holding down my Option or my Alt key, and Option or Alt click on the corner widgets, and this will allow me to cycle through those three shapes. And you'll notice when you watch the cursor here, you'll see that that cursor, and in the lower right-hand corner of that cursor, it will show you what shape you have. So Option or Alt click, inverse, flat, or chamfer, and then rounded corners. Now if I pull this all the way out to the max here, and I use my Option or Alt click, you'll see my cursor changes but the corners don't. And the reason why is because I don't have any corners pulled. You have to pull the corners in, and then Option or Alt click on those corner widgets in order to go in and see that difference. If you double click on that shape and you get your little chubby donut here, and you Option or Alt click, unfortunately it's going to still do all the corners. That little double click on that chubby donut only allows you to go in and change the size of that corner. It doesn't allow you to change the style of the corner. So if I pull these all the way back out and then bring these back in, it's reset all the corners. Now, how about I want to do just one corner by itself? I'm going to jump over to the direct selection tool, and you can do one of two things. You can either go in and directly select a corner or just simply start from the outside of the shape and click and drag over that corner to get just that corner widget. So I simply click and drag over there with a direct selection tool and I get just that one corner widget that I can move around. And now because I only have that corner selected, I can Option or Alt click and I can change the shape of that corner independently of all the other corners. Now if I'd like to do two corners, I can select one corner, hold down the Shift key, select the other corner, and this will allow me to pull those corners together. And if I pull those in and I Option or Alt click, you can see that I can change the style or the shape of those independently. But since I've selected them both, it will only do those two corners and not the other corners that I don't have selected. So kind of fun. Now, if you did want to go in and use your transform panel, you'll notice in the transform panel here that we can go in and we can set specific corner radius numbers. Now, the one thing that's the problem here when we do go in and we do set our corner radius, here we don't have a way to really snap to our corner radius. I can't hold down my Shift key and get the radius to be a particular size and snap to it, and it's really hard to get it directly on that number that you want. So if I go over to my transform panel, you'll notice that these are all linked together with the chain in here, which means if I enter in any of a size here and then simply click, it will go ahead and match all of the corner radius sizes. Now to the left and to the right of these numbers here, we've got the corners. So this is the upper right corner, the upper left corner, upper right, lower left. This is where I can go in and I can change them separately. Now the locking here only refers to the size. It does not refer to the style of the corner. So if you want them all the same, you will have to go into the corner type and you will have to manually adjust all of those if you want to do it this way in the transform panel. But when you adjust the size here, you'll notice that the size will be consistent across all of them. If you want no corner on here, there is not a no corner option. That just simply means you go down to 0. When you go down to 0, you'll notice that the corners change, but funny enough, you don't have that no corner option from your choices here. If you go in and you try to set a specific type of corner, it won't work if your corner radius is set to 0. You have to have a number here. Once you set this to other than 0, you will get that ability to go in and set your styles. It's a common issue that people run into. Okay? We're going to go back to my selection tool. And I'm going to click on a polygon. Now a polygon is unique that it only has one corner widget that shows up when you select it. Okay? Now if I use my selection tool and I pull on that corner widget, I can change that. And if I go under my transform panel, I only have one measurement for my corner radius, and then I can go in and change all the corners and the radius of all those corners all at once. But if I switch over to my direct selection tool, you'll notice that that corner radius now shows up, or my little corner widgets show up, and I can now select those separately. So if I click and drag over just those 3 corners, and just those corners are activated, I could drag those out to get no corner radius, or drag them in, and then Option or Alt click and kind of run through there, and I can make like a little onesie for a kid, little arms, armholes and shoulders, and then the little place where the diaper would go in for the legs. So I can just simply select each individual corner here and change those separately the same way I did my rectangle or my square. Now stars are going to be the same way. If I grab this star with my selection tool, you'll notice that there are no corner widgets whatsoever. Funny enough, there is when we do a polygon, but not when we draw a star. There's no corner widgets. Well, there are corner widgets, but they're just not there because there's so many of them. And the corner widgets will only show up on a star if I select my shape and then go to my direct selection tool. Now what's unique about this, and I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see, is that our corner widgets appear on the inside and the outside of my shape. Okay? So it appears like these are the outside, and these corner widgets are taking care of basically our inside corners here. And then we get our corner widgets here, which appear inside, and they're taking care of the outside corners. So if I select the entire shape with my direct selection tool and pull on my corner widgets, this will round all of my inside and all of my outside corners at once. Now, if I wanted to do just the outside corners here, say I wanted to do just the tips right here, I'm going to go in and use my lasso tool, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to kind of very carefully lasso those outer points like this. This is one way of doing it. And I lasso just those outer points and go back to my direct selection tool, and you'll notice that just those corners are selected, not the inside corners, just the outside ones. Another way of doing this too is I could select one, and then I could just hold down my shift key and shift and drag over or select those corners to get just those shapes. If I'd like to change those, I can hold down my Option or Alt key, and you can see that I can change just those selected ones by cycling through and changing just those corners. Once you drag them all the way out to the end, you're done, and you've reset them all back to 0, so any unique sizes will be set back to 0. So that's a cool thing with the star, and we're going to come back to that because there's more fun things that we can do with that. Now, a triangle is also a polygon here, and if I select it with my selection tool, you'll notice we only have one corner widget. But if I jump over to my direct selection tool, we now have the 3 corner widgets, and each one of those can be selected independently and changed from everything else and cycled through to change however you'd like to change those independently. Okay? Now, so why would this be of any use? Well, I want to show you this really cool use of corner widgets, and I want to do this little stylized kind of chicken head. And I've got a square, and then basically this square, 2 squares together, a rectangle. I'm going to take my direct selection tool, select the upper left-hand corner of the rectangle. I'm going to pull that all the way in to the maximum widgetness, okay? And maximum widgetness just means when you pull it all the way in, you'll notice that we get to the point where we can no longer pull those corners in, and that path will turn red. That's what I call maximum widgetness. It's kind of hard to see here because I've got these filled with red shapes, but I'm going to take my direct selection tool, select just the left-hand 2 corners and pull that in, and I'm going to bring this to my maximum widgetness, and you'll see that red line will show up. And then here I'm going to select 3 out of the 4 corners right there. I'm going to pull those into my maximum widgetness right there. And I'm going to draw a nice little circle right there. Look at that. I got like a little stylized chicken head. Isn't that awesome? Maybe even take this corner with the direct selection tool and pull that in, kind of create an interesting little shape right there. So there's a lot of fun stuff we can do with corner widgets. Okay? Now, the cool part with this is that there's so many things that people do with corner widgets that they try to go ahead and draw. So I'm going to show you just some of the very basic things that we can do with corner widgets. They're going to make life super easy. First of all, if you want to do a house or a picket fence, okay? You draw a rectangle or you draw a square. It doesn't have to be anything special. I'm going to grab my direct selection tool, select just the top 2 corners. I'm going to pull those in. We have a little tombstone. I'm going to hold down my Option or Alt key, and I'm going to click through. We've got like a little pagoda there. Or Option or Alt click on there again. Now I have a little house right there. Well, this could be a house, or it could be like a fence post right there, or a little picket for a fence, which works great. Another thing we can do too, starting off with a perfect square right here, I can go in and I can do like a perfect little drop right here. If I want like a little pointer, I can go in with my direct selection tool, select 3 out of those 4 corners, and pull those into the maximum widgetness. And this forms a fantastic little pointer here. Let's make it a little bit more prominent. If I want to point to something, okay, it's great. I can rotate this 45 degrees, and I now have a little water droplet or something. I can turn it upside down, so I get a little map pointer as well. Works really good. Started out as a square, and I just corner widgeted 3 out of the 4 corners, makes a perfect pointer. Now, what I want to show you next is going to be phenomenal. I'm going to grab my star tool. I'm going to draw a star. I'm going to hold down my shift key so the feet of the star are going to be baselined here so it's not rotated kind of funny. And while I'm drawing here, I'm not going to let go of my mouse, but I'm going to use my up arrow while I have my mouse held down, and I'm going to increase the number of points on the star. Then I'm going to let go. I'm going to go back to my direct selection tool and click on this, and you'll notice all of my corner widgets show up. Now what I want to do is I want to pull on any one of my corner widgets, and I'm going to zoom in here so you can see this a little bit better, keeping in mind that I can't go in And when I select this, people try to pull these corner widgets in toward the center. You can't. These can only go out because these are on the outside, and outside ones can only go out. Inside ones can only go in. I'm going to pull this into my maximum widgetness here, and you can see that the whole thing turns red. I can't get any more corner widget out of this. What I want to do is I want to pull between my outmost point and my inmost corner maximum widgetness here, kind of around this. And now I can get like this little amoeba or this little blob or this little cupcake tin just by pulling those corners, okay? But not all the way in, okay? So I'm going to pull them kind of halfway out there. Now I'm going to hold down my Option or Alt key and I'm going to cycle through and I'm going to Option or Alt click once. And now I've got like a little cold virus or a little kind of viral thing, which kind of looks like this little, cell. Pretty cool. Now I'm going to select it again with the direct selection tool. I'm going to Option or Alt click the third time and I'm going to get flat edges. And this will create a gear. I know. People are like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I always try to draw a gear. Don't bother, okay? All this is a star with 3 different corners, okay? We have rounded corners to make it look like a little cupcake or a little muffin tin or a little blob. And then I get my inverse rounded corners to make it look like a little virus. And then I get my flat corners to make it look like a little gear. Don't draw this stuff, folks. Go in and widget it, okay? Cool stuff. Now, one more thing that we run into when we're dealing with corner widgets. I'm going to grab my rectangle here, and I'm going to go ahead and fill it with a different color here so we're not using the same colors on everything. Make it a little bit more interesting. If I go in and I just simply grab 2 of these corners with the direct selection tool and I corner widget those, and then I want to resize this entire shape. I go back to my selection tool and I can make this bigger or smaller. You'll notice that when I maximum corner widgeted those corners, they stay that exact size, okay? Now, what happens if I want to make it so that end stays completely rounded? Well, here's the trick. If I go in and I pull those corners to the maximum widgetness right here, which I have, I can't get any more roundness out of them, and I try to size this smaller, I'm trying to size this smaller here, and you'll notice that I can't size it any smaller. Why? Because I can't overcome that maximum widgetness. I can't make that corner any smaller. However, if I go to my transform panel and I click on the scale corners, now I can scale those corners up or down. You'll notice I can just grab any one of my active corners here, and those corners will always create a perfect half circle. I take off the scale corners, those will stay the exact same size, and I can make this taller or shorter. They stay the exact same size, but now I get that flat spot, okay? If I go in and I push it back up here, I get to that point where I can no longer curve that anymore. If I click the scale corners, now I can scale this up or down, keeping that perfect half-roundedness right there no matter what I do. It's awesome. And I can also make this smaller and smaller and smaller here with the scale corners turned on. So that's something that you may run into. You may say, gosh, why can't I go in and scale this? I can make it, wider or narrower, but I can't make it taller or shorter. That's because of the scale corners. Once you do, you can scale the corners smaller. And then when you make them bigger, they'll just go ahead and be made bigger. You can go ahead and scale that all around. That's the scale or not scale the corners. Works pretty cool. Now, you'll notice we can create all these amazing shapes. I didn't draw anything. All I did was I just started out with rectangles, squares, polygons, and stars, and all of a sudden I ended up with this amazing array of just really simple shapes. And I think too many people go in and they try to draw something, and I try to emphasize that you want to go in and you just want to create. Do so many things with this kind of creation. It's pretty amazing. And the only thing you can't do it to is you can't do it to a circle because a circle has no corners. But here's one last tip, folks. When you do go in and you do take a square like this and you draw a square, if you go in and you corner widget the whole thing, you get a perfect circle, okay? And so, if you want a perfect circle, just draw a perfect circle. But sometimes people will go in and they'll widget this whole thing down. And the only difference between a circle that is a true circle and a rectangle that has been made into corner widgets, this is the telltale sign right here. This is a normal circle, and you see the dot is a solid blue in the middle. If I click on this and I have my little corner widget target here, this tells me that this is really a square. Okay. And if I pull on that, you'll notice that I can pull that out and I can get a flatter circle or rounder circle. And that's the only real telltale sign. The other thing with a circle is you get your little waka waka handle, which is what I call it, which allows you to go ahead and open your pie shape here, which is not something you can do if you start with a square or a rectangle and you corner widget it. To the naked eye, these look exactly the same. This has a little waka waka handle sticking out, and that's got the little target. They both look like circles, they both act like circles, but they're functionally different. So I hope this clears up a lot of things for you folks with corner widgets because they are amazing, they're fun, they're easy to use, and there are so many things that you can create without having to draw anything complex. Hope you enjoyed it. Check out my other videos. And also, folks, check out my book on Adobe Illustrator that just came out. You can buy it on Amazon, and you can also go to rockynook.com, and you can get an EPUB version as well as the print version here, and I walk through all of this great stuff in there.